Walking your dishes to the sink too boring for you? Are you sick of standing still? Don't you wish your life was a little more movie? Then you should try movement. What's movement? Our pattern and movement tech helps you reach the high velocity lifestyle that exists only in your dreams. Just listen to these satisfied customers.
Thanks to movement, me and my daughter, we spend so much more time together.
I met my partner through movement.
Don't tell my wife, but I've spent my last 6 paychecks on movement and it's become a real problem for me. Movement has taken up so much of my life, I can't live without it.
Moving is important. If it's for putting your unwashed dishes in the sink or getting advantage in a sick Fortnite clip, well-designed movement can change the ways that the game is developed and how players interact with the environment. Titanfall 2 gets this right in a lot of ways, with the perfect combinations of robot guy and pilot guy gameplay. Titanfall's movement system lets you interact with any surface in the game, be it walls, floors, and even the ceilings. There are these dev diaries from 2017 that go over the development of the game's campaign and level design and how they created a mix of both these big set-piece battle arenas and tight exploration and parkour sections. Creating this chimera crossbreed of the two different gameplay styles, you end up with this unique gameplay experience that when mastered can be incredibly satisfying. If you have a look at TF2's multiplayer maps, they've been designed with a couple different considerations. Buildings and terrain are large and open to promote that slow and lumbering Titan movement and create interesting sightlines and battlefields. Meanwhile, smaller scale battles take place inside these maze-like corridors and choke points. Maps are designed with lots of slopes and flowing land to keep you moving, and cover is minimal, encouraging the player to find it through movement. I don't think it's a stretch to say that the movement systems in Titanfall 2 helped to inform the design of the game's environments. And it's this harmony between the two different systems of the game that make it such a well-loved title all these years later with a solid community that still enjoys and plays the game. Insomniac's Spider-Man, and also the rest of the Spider Guy games, are really cool explorations of movement development and the balance of realism versus fun. How do you translate Spider-Man from script to screen, and how do you make that fun? It is entirely convenient that this question is answered in a 2019 GDC talk hosted by Insomniac's Doug Sheehan. His lecture is full of a lot of really cool and thought-provoking stuff for me, who is not a programmer, not a game designer, and chills out in front of his computer watching cat videos all day. And he describes the process of iterating on their various models of the game, and it turns out that creating a true-to-life physics-based swinging experience fucking sucked. It was hard to swing in a straight line. Spider-Man was carrying around a 2-ton truck ass because jumping felt slow and killed all your momentum, and traditional camera systems were clunky and it sucked. To the shock of all zero people, realism kinda stinks. If you've played any of these Spider-Dude games, you'll know that these initial models didn't make it into the game. By working through a series of these, they created a seamless and satisfying swinging experience that really makes you feel like Spider-Man. They dialed back on the realism of the swinging and gave everything just a bit more and held your hand just a little bit more. This talk is really great insight into the development process and gives you a little inside look on their brain space. Their initial approach to the game design was creating something true to life that made a lot of sense logically, but as development continued, they realized that creating something fun and satisfying would have yielded a way better player experience. DRG trades away swinging through the air, for at least 3 of the classes, for traversal tools, each with their own unique attributes. Drillers, drills, let you move through the map with ease, closing the horizontal distance between objectives but are lacking in verticality. Gunner's zipline is the inverse, with a slow movement speed but giving you greater reach and vertical access. Engineer is the nice middle ground, platforms let you get around pretty well both vertically and horizontally, but not to the extreme of the other 2 gadgets. On their own, these gadgets are pretty whatever, with really clear weaknesses, but put together, each gadget complements one another, and together they make these otherwise stubby dwarfs agile bug-killing machines. The one outlier here is the Scout's grappling hook, since it's both self-serving and also lacking a really clearly defined weakness, unless you count fall damage. What's special about this gadget, though, is its presence in a team environment. Grappling up to nearby minerals or getting in and out to revive a down teammate. You can kind of use the other tools without really considering your team, since you can kind of just set them up and then leave them, but the grappling hook is at its strongest when you use it in service of the team dynamic. It's this team-focused philosophy behind all the movement tools that I think makes DRG such an interesting point to talk about. In Titanfall or Spider-Man, using your tools in relation to others is basically a non-consideration, but in DRG, good use of these tools can have major benefits for your team. Moving gets really interesting when you start to look at games where the limits of movement have been broken. Games where player innovation is taken center stage to break the rules and the limitation of a game's engine to really get schmovin'. God, that sounds so fucking stupid. I'm gonna be for real. The Source engine is completely fucked. Air strafing is one of the most notable examples of the Source engine's fuckedness. Being grandfathered in from their predecessors in the Quake engine, it's present in a lot of Valve's biggest titles, Half-Life, CSGO, and even Portal 2. Strafing through the air maintains speed, and jumping gives you more speed, letting you hop around the map at stupid high speeds. This byproduct of the game engine is really interesting because how the fuck do you account for something like that when you design a level? So you end up seeing these absolutely incredible feats of speed, tearing apart complex and obtuse levels with high precision. It's pretty crazy how b-hopping is in games like Counter-Strike. I think I just started writing but didn't finish that off, whatever. Big fans of b-hopping even run community servers, rotating challenge maps, which are pretty cool, I guess. If you've ever watched a video from 2010 forward, you'll probably hear a slur, and then you'll also see that they are playing CSGO surf maps in the background. Gravity makes you gain speed when you slide off of ramps at certain angles, so people have designed these crazy maps where you fly through the air at stupid speeds like a psycho, which is hilarious when you filter through the lens of this game being a positional-based tactical shooter. If by some magical occurrence you end up rocket propelling your b-hopping, then you're playing one of my favorite games, Team Fortress 2. In a similar vein to CSGO's b-hopping, rocket jumping and sticky jumping both take advantage of the strafing mechanic, adding the secret sauce of throwing your feet up to get around. Rocket jumping sets itself apart from b-hopping by being a touch more technical, asking the player to think about the angle at which they set off their next explosion, making for this really cool game of the floor is lava, setting off explosions at the perfect interval to build and maintain speed. Add in sync jumps by shooting another rocket to get increased propulsion, pogo hopping to cross long distances of land, and even more. Rocket jumping is some seriously sick tech. TF2, wait, didn't I just talk about that? Maintains a lot of the physics functions of its father engine, but stacks on top of that the many additional movement options of double jumping, wall running, and sliding. As a result, Titanfall 2 has a version of b-hopping on steroids called slide hopping, where starting a slide hop is much faster and allows you to gain more speed. Like I talked about before though, Titanfall 2 was designed with movement in mind, so there's a greater reward for taking advantage of movement tech, like giving you high ground or getting you into cover faster. Also, Titanfall 2 has the genius inclusion of a grappling hook, which automatically makes it the best game ever made. Apex Legends ditches a lot of the stuff that players really liked about Titanfall 2 and replaces them with random loot drops and getting third, fourth, and fifth party, which is a really fun and engaging experience, I promise. But the soul of Titanfall 2 lives on through its movement-minded players, who still use b-hopping and other movement tech developed in this game's ecosystem. Tap strafing is one of the crazier techniques seen in Apex. It lets you strafe while making these really sharp turns, allowing you to make full 180-degree rotations without losing any of that juicy movement speed. But combining a much more grounded movement system with a higher time to kill creates a completely different experience, despite being set in the same universe and with many of the same weapons. Movement options are a touch more committal, requiring you to use slightly more brain cells while you're playing. Fighting games have maybe 30 different types of movement tech that are all worth talking about, and the original version of this script had a full page gushing about neutral interactions, but then I realized nobody wants to fucking watch that video. But let me get my one talking point because I really like Korean backdashing. I'm gonna say backdash a lot in this next bit, okay? Just let it slide. Tekken lets you cancel movement options into other moves, e.g. backdash into a button. So crackhead Korean players figured out that you can backdash and then cancel your backdash into another backdash by interrupting the backdash with a down-back input, birthed from the aptly named Korean backdash. In a game that's all about getting up in your opponent's grill and using plus and minus frames to dictate the flow of combat, this tech is one of the strongest things used at the highest level of Tekken and has major practical applications in controlling space. Being able to whiff punish can be a decider for a round of Tekken, and because every character can KBD in some capacity, it allows you to move in and out of your opponent's maximum range with ease and force a whiffed button from them. This makes high-level Tekken incredibly tense to watch, using movement to create layers and layers of mind games that your opponent needs to guess on can be real nerve-wracking to watch. In some ways, you might consider this a bad thing for a game that barely has a tutorial since Tekken 8 came out. It really raises the skill ceiling for intermediate play, but even though it's such a game changer at high levels, it's not a necessary skill that you need to play the game with. There are already so many other factors to your gameplay in Tekken that you can kind of get away with not really learning it and adding it to your core fundamental playstyle. Even so, people love the intricacy that this mechanic adds to the gameplay and the amount of skill expression that it allows. So much so, that even in modern Tekken, this legacy mechanic is still present. Oh, that's snot in my nose, man. Holy fuck. Fortnite's a really interesting example of the lack of movement being supplemented by player innovation. Fortnite has a lot of stuff that lets you move horizontally, and you run pretty fast, but your jump is like really pathetic. Before newer seasons introduced Zero Build, the map was designed with a lot of these really steep hills that are basically impossible to climb, meaning that if you wanted to have stable ground, you would build ramps up. Coming from the original Save the World version of the game to make bases and stuff and repair barriers like it's COD Zombies, and in Battle Royale it takes on a similar function to basically put you behind cover whenever you want. What people started doing with these in-game Legos was use them to create pathways and drastically change the way that you approach positioning in combat. Fortnite became this really interesting chess game of who has worse carpal tunnel syndrome, building up and up to get high ground over the opponent. While not inherently a movement system, the way that players make use of buildings to circumvent that limitation of movement placed on them is incredibly interesting and a testament to the dedication of a player base where Venom can do Gangnam Style. Okay, I gotta be for real, that's all the shit that I had to talk about. I don't really know how to end the video, I'm gonna be totally honest. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I really like good movement. And when you play a game that you do like a McTwist and a double whammy slam spin and you feel like the coolest motherfucker in the world, that's like the best part about well-designed movement. It's like movement that makes you feel cool and makes the game more fun. All right, that's it. Bye.
This is the love making.